Are you wrestling with the business of getting older? I know I am. It's a bit like being on my favourite coastal path around Whitby or Runswick Bay. There's some steep uphill climbs, there's some decent downhills, but there's a hell of a drop. And I can't escape the feeling that the path is getting narrower and harder the longer it gets. I heard on the radio this morning that there's a new study that people are happier after 50 years of age. Well, I haven't been happier after 50, and in this video I'll explain why. Today is the anniversary of my father's passing. It's 21 years since he passed away at the age of 74. And not just that, in 2 days' time I'm having my long-awaited for gallbladder operation. So that's why I'm in contemplative mood today. So why am I not happier after 50? Well, let me explain. I actually think my 30s were the best decade. That decade I had everything. I had a business, I was experiencing success, I was financially stable, plenty of money. My wife and I finally had the long-awaited baby that we'd always wanted. My mum and dad were still alive, and I got to spend a lot of time with my dad, playing golf. So my 30s were the best decade. It wasn't without its problems. I would say I was a workaholic. I definitely ate crap, and I'm now suffering the consequences with this gallbladder problem. But overall, despite those things, despite the stress of running a business, my 30s were definitely a good decade. What I didn't realise was that everything was going to change in my 40s with the death of my father. That was the kick up the arse I needed to make some serious changes in my life, and I've talked about these at length in other videos, so I won't go into too much detail here. But in short form, I quit the business that I co-founded, and I decided to become a full-time dad and spend time with my son more than being at the coalface and the workaholic that I was in my 30s. But my 40s weren't without their challenges. I actually found the transition to be really hard, and my late 40s in particular, I felt lost. My worst decade, in my opinion, was my 50s. When I entered my 50s, I thought things might change, but the first half, particularly, I continued finding the transition from quitting my business and now becoming fully retired really quite difficult. So that was the decade when I was very much aware that my dad was gone, and my mum passed away in that decade too. Then my son grew up and headed off to university, leaving the family home. So the 50s were a bit of a struggle from a mental point of view. There were still a lot of good things going on, but my 50s were a decade of experimentation. But fortunately, things were going to take a good turn when I hit 60. But everything changed in my 60s. That's when I became happier. After 60, not after 50. Although I suppose you could technically say that 60 is after 50. But the way I see it is, I'm happier after 60. I'm 64 and I'm great. Apart from the gallbladder thing. But hopefully that'll get solved in the next couple of days. The experimentation phase of the 50s is over, and a new leaf is turned now that I'm 60. So what's happened in my 60s to make all that go away, all those trials and tribulations of my 40s and 50s? Well, the first thing that my wife and I did was we downsized our house. We sold our property in the countryside, we moved into the city, into a property half the size, and that's been transformational. I have made videos on the topic, so I'll leave a link in the description if you wanted to look at that. But more importantly, I've just come to accept the changes that are occurring. I'm very conscious that the age at which men pass away on average in the city of York is 79. So I know that the future is likely to have some change in it. I mean, I do know people who are in their 60s who are suffering from Parkinson's and dementia, and I look at them and I feel blessed for the fact that I'm still relatively healthy. I can still move, I can still bench press, I walk 5 miles most days. There's plenty of life left in this old dog yet. You have to work at being happy after 50. I know I did. It took some discipline, but it's all in the mind. It's definitely a mindset. choose happiness and there's a good chance that it'll come to you. I refuse to accept the rules about what is age appropriate. I wear Hugo Boss jeans, Stone Island tops, I wear rock t-shirts and Adidas Sambas, and I don't care that because at 64 I'm not supposed to wear that kind of stuff. I enjoy it, it's who I am, and I don't care if you don't like those things. I like them, and that's all that matters. If there's one message that I can give you for achieving happiness after 50 and after 60, it's that you should be your authentic self and not care what others think. I stopped caring about other people's opinions when I was probably in my early 50s, and yes, it took me that long to do it. I wished I'd done it sooner, but now I really don't care. I'll do my own thing. I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing what I want to do to please me, not to please other people. I'm conscious that one day I'll be doing my last bench press. I'll be taking my last 5-mile walk. And yeah, I'm okay with that. That's part of life, isn't it? The passage of time, the reality of what happens in life. The most important thing, I think, is that you just live a life true to yourself. You don't want to be one of the people that my favourite author, Bronnie Ware, describes in her book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Who wants to live a life full of regret? And there's still time, if you're in your 50s, 60s, or even your 70s, to make the changes so that you don't eventually die with regrets. So I'll continue to put on the jam, crank up the volume and wear their t-shirt. This is the last video before I have my op in a couple of days' time to remove my gallbladder. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who have left some nice comments wishing me well with the operation, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side. In the meantime, if you'd like to watch this video next, it explains the 5 things that I stopped doing after 60. Thanks for watching again. See you soon. Are you wrestling with the business of getting older? I know I am. It's a bit like being on the coastal path that I like so much around Whitby and Runswick Bay. It's steep in places, it's narrow in places, and there's a big drop. So why am I not happier after 50? If you don't like that, I'm conscious that one day there will be the last bench press.